The world as we know it effectively came to an end in the early 2000s as a result of one moment, the Black Mesa incident. Even though the majority of the population did not know what brought the Combine to Earth, there were some who attempted to spread information about Black Mesa and the government's lies. But before all this happened, what was the Black Mesa research facility actually used for? Why was it built in an isolated region? And who or what was behind its fall? In this video, we explore the lore and story behind arguably the most significant location in the Half-Life series, Black Mesa. Way back in around the 1950s, the Black Mesa Research Corporation purchased a series of decommissioned intercontinental ballistic missile launching and testing silos and the land around them in the New Mexico desert. Their motto was, working to make a better tomorrow for all mankind. And for this, they required a location to construct a facility that would allow them to explore several fields of scientific endeavors in complete secrecy. An old Cold War base was perfect for this, as they were designed in mind for security and safety, with underground bunkers, a hardened structure, and controlled access points. Stranded in the middle of a hostile environment also meant that no one would come across this place by accident, and only those permitted on site would know of what actually went on inside. On the foundation of the Cold War base. Over the years, the Black Mesa Research Facility expanded as new staff joined, government grants were acquired, and scientific intrigue into new fields was explored. Everything was kept secret, and that was by design. What the people inside studied and researched was extremely interesting. Although advanced technology, weaponry, and even dimensional exploration was in Black Mesa's future, none of it would matter. This place was destined to fall. By the time decades had passed since the purchase of this land, the small old Cold War base had expanded out into the desert into the size of a city, above and below ground. Just like every city, each region was important and employees were hired to help it run. Contractors and builders worked on new structures, and most importantly, the scientific personnel worked on their research. To navigate this huge facility, and more importantly, allow only those with the correct security clearance into where they were meant to be, the Black Mesa transit system operated across several colored lines with several trams. By the early 2000s, the facility comprised 7 main sectors, sectors A to F, each one home to their own function and personnel. On the green line, Sector A was labelled the training facility. The work at Black Mesa was mysterious and important, and because of the more classified and dangerous operations that occurred in sectors C, E, and F, these hazard courses were designed to train the personnel in the use of technology and equipment that would keep them safe. For people who worked in hostile regions, they were introduced to and taught how the HEV suit worked. For the security personnel, target ranges were accessible to improve their accuracy with supplied weaponry, and challenging hazard courses gave them the opportunity to experience what a possible future situation could be like if something went wrong in a research facility. All of these were either operated by trained personnel or state-of-the-art holographic assistants, one in the form of Dr. Gina Cross for the science personnel and Miller for security. These were just 2 of the known courses, but many more likely existed, depending on the role of the participant and the department they worked in. On occasion, Black Mesa also held a hazard course decathlon event. Sector A also had a satellite communication sensor which was used by other teams. The research at Black Mesa was incredibly secretive and sensitive. Because of this, those hired were required to live on site with their families. This meant that each sector also had its own dormitories to house their personnel. As children were also raised here, it is also likely that they were offered education somewhere on site, although this has never been confirmed. Over on the yellow line, Sector F, the Lambda complex, was Black Mesa's most interesting and groundbreaking region. Powered by a nuclear reactor and kept stable by a Lambda reactor coolant system, the Lambda complex was home to a giant teleporter. Years before, the team had been told to explore teleportation technology. It was back in their old lab in Section A17, the prototype labs, that the first teleporter had pulled one of them through to not another place in Black Mesa, but an entirely different dimension altogether. Under the orders of Black Mesa's administrator and leader, Dr. Wallace Breen, survey teams were sent through to explore this place. Over time, they discovered that this was something of a border world, a dimension that connected to other worlds across the universe, and through it, different flora and fauna had arrived here and made it their home, unable to return to their own world. With a whole dimension of different rules, full of new plants and animals, Black Mesa saw this as a goldmine of opportunity and technological advancement. When the much larger, state-of-the-art lab in Sector F was constructed for the team, the prototype labs were sealed away, having completed their purpose. After samples were brought back to Black Mesa for study, the team discovered that the crystals of Zen resonated displacement energy, and when an emitter was attached to one of the larger crystals on the border world, it essentially became a relay for their teleportation experiments. Around this, they developed localized teleportation. Originally, their experiments had only allowed them to break through into another universe, but with this relay, they basically used Zen as a dimensional slingshot to teleport from one location in Black Mesa to another. Now, the discovery of Zen itself, on its surface, appeared to be a complete accident, but was it? With what ultimately happened, it could be suggested that the G-Man and his employers gave this team a slight nudge to find it. In our natural thirst to understand everything around us, survey teams were established to traverse this border world with the mission to observe and report on the ecosystem and the laws that bound its physics. If these could be studied, dissected, used, and applied to human science, the possibilities could be endless. Yet, it became quickly apparent that Zen was not a safe place. It was openly hostile to everything. The trees attacked anything that came near them, the ground reacted to being stood on, and the creatures hunted what they saw, but it did not deter the administrator from sending through new survey teams when others fell to Zen's dangers. From the perspective of the facility, the exploration of this place was more valuable than the lives that could be lost. Now, the work into teleportation was incredibly interesting, but this was just one field that opened up upon the discovery of Zen. On the green line, Sector E was commissioned and became the Biodome complex. Across this huge sector, several artificial environments were constructed and filled with Zenian flora and fauna procured from the border world. It was essential to understand how the bull squid, head crabs, hound-eye, and the other various creatures behaved and interacted with other animals, and these environments were recreated as closely as the team could to Zen. Each biodome was catered to fit the needs of the creatures. One dome had fungi, light stalks, trees, and tentacles along with hound-eyes and head crabs. Another in the hydrofauna lab was filled with water for the ichthyosaur and leeches. In another section, containment chambers and testing labs were utilized to perform tests, dissect, and pull them apart. Barnacles were feared by the survey teams on Zen, as one misstep led to an incredibly painful death. But the biological weapons team saw a use for the barnacle and transformed their natural strong and sticky tongue into a grapple, and infant shock troopers were viewed not as tiny aliens, but biological grenade launchers. As their research advanced, when not in their domes, these creatures were stored in metal crates to be used in a new round of tests for the exploration of new weapons, armor, and technology. This work was incredibly secretive and important, and above ground, Sector E's silo was used to launch satellites into space. Sector E furthered Black Mesa's understanding of the biology of the creatures of Zen, and propelled them years ahead in their research. On the blue line, Sector C was home to the test labs. It was here that there were at least 33 test labs designed and calibrated to controlled environments to perform specific tests. While the majority of these tests are unknown, Test Lab 33A was home to one of the facility's most impressive machines, an anti-mass spectrometer. The majority of what the survey team brought back to Earth was given to Sector E, but the crystals were something else. Each crystal generated a different level of displacement energy, and effectively gave them a unique capacity to create portals using Black Mesa technology. Designed by Dr. Rosenberg, the anti-mass spectrometer scanned a crystal sample placed into the center of the machine with oscillating electromagnetic fields with beams of high-energy plasma. This agitated the exotic matter that made up the crystal, and the displacement field that generated around the sample was then analyzed with advanced sensors. This was a huge operation. The machine itself spanned 3 floors of Sector C, and with it, a large team of scientists, material handlers, and various other personnel each had their own important roles to fill. Black Mesa hired the best of the best, and in this anomalous materials team specifically, Dr. Isaac Kleiner, Dr. Eli Vance, Dr. Arnie Magnuson, Dr. Richard Keller, Dr. Rosenberg, Dr. Gina Cross, Dr. Colette Green, and Dr. Gordon Freeman were just some of many. This work could be catastrophic if something went wrong, and to avoid this, several safety and security features were put in place to ensure everything went to plan. As Black Mesa was secretive about everything, the anomalous materials team were kept in the dark to a degree of what the full nature of their work was for, and as they were just one team in the test labs, many other interesting and fascinating projects would have also been in the works. The Black Mesa Research Facility explored so many different fields of science and was incredibly exciting. However, on the yellow line, Sector D, administration, was kind of the opposite. It was here that the office staff handled all of the administrative and bureaucratic work. Experiments required funding. There was red tape. When survey teams went missing, the public or families could not be told that they had been eaten by a creature in a different dimension. The hiring, firing, communications with the government were all things they had to do. There was so much to do to keep this facility operational and in line with the laws of the United States government. At one point, Black Mesa also purchased an old Cold War base out in Eastern Europe. It was at White Forest that they planned to research new ventures with fewer legal restrictions and lower costs, but they never got the chance to use it. Having grown into the size of a city and located in the middle of a vast desert, this entire complex had to be self-sufficient, which worked with their line of work. Sector G, the hydroelectric dam on the red line, was essential and kept almost every machine, light bulb, doorway, and charging station operational. Just like every other sector, personnel were hired to run the dam, to clear out blockages, repair cracks, and many of the other smaller jobs required to power what was basically a city. Finally, on the blue line, Sector B, labeled the Coolant Reserve, was designed to keep this facility cool. With so many computers, devices, and pieces of equipment active, Black Mesa would have been boiling hot. in a desert, but the coolant reserve made sure that the temperature across the whole facility was maintained at a pleasant 68 degrees Fahrenheit. For my British guys, that is 20 degrees Celsius. The main 7 sectors of Black Mesa were a perfect blend of function and operation for the facility. A well thought out and designed complex for quite possibly thousands of employees, each with their own dormitories on site. There were people who ran the dam, made sure sewage and waste flowed into the correct areas, builders and contractors extended sectors, medical staff worked in infirmaries, caterers worked in the multiple cafeterias, people restocked vending machines, a chemical processing plant recycled wastewater. People were required to run and operate laundromats, sports regions, food courts. Freight yards brought in and stored essentials, food and technology. There was even a newspaper, the Mesa Times, that informed the population on site of important news both at Black Mesa and in the real world. All of this located in a secure facility in the middle of a desert. Each person had their own security level and could only access what they had been hired to do. This place was designed for the exploration of science, but across its long tunnels, labs, offices, and stores, communities would have formed as families were raised. Now, I have mentioned a bunch of times how important secrecy and security was to this facility, but how did they enforce it? Well, there were the security clearance levels assigned to each person on site. This, for example, stopped a civilian from entering Sector C, but there was so much more. Topside was home to an airstrip that monitored activity above and around the complex. It was also around here where the facility stored and maintained SUVs that transported staff and guests to and from Black Mesa. Deep below ground, those outside of the Advanced Biological Research Labs or Lambda complex did not know just how dangerous work in the facility was. What if a teleportation experiment went wrong, or one of the captured Xenian creatures broke free? Trained extensively in Sector A, the security team was given a disaster response list if something were to occur. Their first priority was to preserve the facility, its equipment, and materials. The second, to watch over the welfare of the research personnel. And finally, their third, their own safety. Alongside this, automated turrets were also installed in the ceilings and calibrated to target alien or hostile life forms, depending on the target. As for external security, at least 2 failsafes were set up. A very efficient cleanup crew trained by the military, and an even more secretive Black Ops team. These, however, would only be deployed in the most extreme circumstances. It should also be noted that Black Mesa found themselves in a little competition of sorts against another science company, Aperture Science. Well, I say competition, but it was not a close one. They competed against each other in an attempt to acquire contracts from the government, but Aperture normally lost. Their CEO, Cave Johnson, was known for his unethical tactics and fields of study, but it did not stop him from doing science. When Cave somehow learned that Black Mesa had begun research into teleportation technology, he lost his mind. This was something he and his team worked on, but in very different ways. Aperture had developed the handheld portal device, while Black Mesa had jumped into a different dimension. Johnson believed that Black Mesa stole his ideas and research, and while at first Cave did appear to be paranoid, he was not entirely wrong. They knew of his work with the Borealis, a research vessel with advanced technology on board that had suddenly disappeared with its crew from the dry dock miles underground. A gravity gun was also developed years later by a Black Mesa scientist after the fall of Earth, but Aperture appeared to have worked on their own before the fall. Black Mesa clearly had a spy in Aperture before. Well, another disaster happened there. As the years passed, Black Mesa developed countless weapons, armor, and machinery. They developed the Tau Cannon, a powerful particle accelerator that fired beams of pure energy. The Gluon Cannon, also labeled the Quantum Destabilizer, transformed depleted uranium-235 into a beam that destroyed all organic matter. And through what was likely their exploration of Zen crystals, the team developed the Displacer Cannon, a portable device not too similar to Aperture's portal gun that generated displacement fields around the target and sent them away to a different location entirely. There was also another trigger to generate a field around the user. This was risky as teleportation technology was not an exact science. With a facility having grown so much over the decades, Black Mesa appeared to be at the top of their field. Their motto, working to make a better tomorrow for all mankind on the surface, was admirable, but the upcoming events at the facility would ultimately do the opposite. From May 16th to May 17th, on an unknown year in the early 2000s, Black Mesa fell as a result of a series of orchestrated events put in place by the G-Man and his employers. A Zenian crystal sample, GG-3883, was chosen and placed into the anti-mass spectrometer in Sector C, under the orders of the administrator. The anomalous materials team was forced to deviate from the standard testing safety procedures they had always used. Because of this, a resonance cascade occurred. A tear ripped open between Earth and the border world of Zen. With this opportunity, the ruler of Zen, the Lambda, sent its forces to invade the facility with the intent to conquer Earth. Over the hours, countless lives were lost, the HECU were sent in, and later, so were the Black Ops. Turrets targeted scientists as well as hostiles, and it became clear that whoever had organized the cleanup of Black Mesa wanted no witnesses at all. It was only through the actions of Dr. Gordon Freeman and the science team that the dimensional breach came to a close. It was also the detonation of an atomic bomb, activated by the G-Man himself, that wiped out Black Mesa and every creature and person inside. This place had been home to so many people, communities, bright minds, and scientific breakthroughs, but as the ashes settled, something worse came. The events at Black Mesa were covered up, but the resonance cascade had significant unforeseen consequences for the rest of the planet. Portal storms ravaged the globe and dropped the very creatures Black Mesa had sought to study into the open world, and most chillingly, acted as a beacon across the multiverse. The echoes of Earth's dimensional breach alerted the Combine of our presence. It is amazing how detailed and complex the Black Mesa research facility was. I wanted to explore what was basically a city and how it functioned without just retelling the story of Half-Life in this video. Everything had a purpose and it just made sense. I also kind of breezed past the resonance cascade because I have already covered it a lot. I do have a dedicated video on the events pinned right now somewhere. If I had to pick a favourite part of Black Mesa, I would say the Biodome complex. The fact that entire environment was constructed to house these creatures is just fascinating. The science team watching them from the observation room like they're a zoo, just great. I have so many bigger videos planned that deep dive into events in this series and look forward to exploring them. I am also going to try maybe one more Left 4 Dead video. The algorithm hasn't been too kind to them sadly, but I do love the series. I am also happy to take game suggestions from you guys for the future. That was everything I wanted to say. If you enjoyed this video, then I would love you to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you did not, and let me know what you thought in the comments section below. Finally, I would like to thank my gold tier patrons and channel members. Queen Arby, Lewis, or an X, Drakey Phoenix, Daniel Cal Drawings, 501st Clone Boy, River Mendoza, Imperial Embers, Canifex, Jimsy, Average Sol, Azu, Jonas, Yali Rodriguez, and Detroit. What did you think of this topic? Did Black Mesa even stand a chance, or was it always going to fall? And what would you like me to cover next? Let me know in the comments below. This is where our story ends. Check back soon for a new one.